Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Power of Educating Our Own. I am your host, Marsha Nivens Mohammed, and this show is facilitated and hosted by the Clara Mohammed Schools Network. We are a network of approximately 19 to 20 schools. I was doing a recent count and I could have swore I counted 20. So I know we're usually saying 19, but today I'm saying 20, right? And those schools include full time, weekend, which we coined strong in schools, and virtual schools, meaning that we have schools that our students can attend online. Tonight, we are back with another uh, great show for you. Tonight's show is Masjid Affiliated Schools Benefits and Challenges. And so, oftentimes, when we are having a discussion about, whether or not to start a school or what a school could potentially look like in our communities, the discussion begins. Is this something that's going to be connected to the masjid? Is this something that's going to be separate from that entity in its own um, individual entity? And, there are pros and cons to that, right? So tonight we are going to talk to um, our guests who will tell us their experiences for either having the school connected to the masjid or not. And so tonight we have with us Dr. Zahira Shakir Khan, and we have with us Sister Mahassan Abdullah. And I do believe we'll have a couple of other guests join us, as well as our co-hosts, Dr. Patricia and Sister Quran, when they are available. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. Assalamu alaikum. How are you all?
Walaikum assalam.
So thank you for being with us this evening as we have this discussion. It's I know for me personally, for the work that we do here in the North New Jersey area, this has been a hot topic, right? Everyone wants a school. No one kind of knows whether or not it should be something that is connected to the masjid or separate, and what can be done versus what can't be done. And some people know more information than others as to what the regulations are. So I'm curious to know, and I'll start with you, Dr. Khan. If you can just sort of give us an intro of who you are, the work that you do, and your perspective on this topic.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm
Walaikum
Zahira
assalam.
Shakir Khan. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I had the pleasure of helping the Mohammed Schools of Atlanta over 25 years ago become the first fully accredited Islamic school in America underneath what is now called Cognia. And that used to be called Advanced Ed, and before that, it was the Southeastern Regional Accreditation Agency for Colleges and Schools. So I helped them with their initial accreditation 25 years ago. And at that time, the major question was whether or not you could be affiliated with a religious institution and go after accreditation. At that time, we had to separate the school's leadership from the masjid leadership. And basically, all that was just a matter of taking out the imam as the director of the school. And we had to hire a separate director of the school. Now, they realized that we would still be affiliated with the Atlanta Masjid of Al Islam, but the imam could not be the director. At that time, that was the only thing that you needed to do in order to separate yourself. Since that time, I think that there have been some additional requirements that show a stronger disconnection between the two entities that have come up based on legal challenges, financial considerations, and then also governance as well. So it depends on where you are in your state in terms of your regional accreditation body in terms of what is required if you want to go the accreditation route. So that would be my first, thing that I would say in terms of considerations, whether or not you want to become an accredited school or not, determining that, and that's going to determine a lot of other things. Now, did you want me to just stop there for a moment, and or did you want me to go into the pros and cons and all now? What would you
So,
like?
that's good, right? That's a good foundation for us to sort of start the conversation. So I'm going to pop over to Sister Mahassan and let us know who you are, the work that you do, and the school that you're connected to, and your perspective on um, being connected to the masjid, having the school be connected to the masjid.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
First, before I start, I'd just like to say that I'm really honored to be able to be on this program and to be able to speak with you on this particular subject. I think that this subject is something that every masjid really needs to visit and look at for itself. So I think that it's an excellent subject. Now, I've been working with the Clara Mohammed School. Our school, this year, we're celebrating our 54th annual benefit. We've been in existence for 54 years, and I have worked with the Clara Muhammad School for 52. I started back when it was Muhammad's University of Islam, and then we made the transitions all the way through. As long as I can remember, our masjid has our school has been affiliated and associated with the masjid, with our imam being the director. And honestly, I don't know the masjid with ever without a school. So, and when we look at that, and this is the way that I see it. Our children are our lifeblood. They're the lifeblood of the masjids. And if we are able to keep our children in a school close to the masjid, then those children, once they grow up, they begin to take our places. Many of us are getting older and we don't, we can't do all the things. But if we train our young ones by having them in our school, and by having, and I said, having the masjid in their lives as well, then they tend to not stray too far. They always come back. So I think that, and I know we have some more things to talk about the pros. I can speak on the pros. I don't know anything about other masjids without schools. I don't know how that works. But as far as the pros are, I think to me, it's the best thing. It's the best thing.
Thank you so much for that, Sister Mahassan. And so, Dr. Khan, I want to talk a little bit about the regulatory components of it, right? Because that's sort of where the questions come in, right? It's like, of course, the masjid would want a school if they can get that started, but regulatorily, can you do it? Um, do things vary from state to state? What sort of separations need to happen with documentation, and similar to what you were sharing earlier with who's in the leadership role? So can you talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of that sort of from that lens?
Okay. Well, I first of all like to add to what Sister Mahassan has said, and that is that the school is a great way to grow your community because the students will come up through the school and then they will eventually, hopefully, stay, with that masjid community and remain active and become leaders in the local masjid. Also, we found in Atlanta that the school was one of the reasons that our community grew. For example, a number of people sent their children to board at the school in Atlanta. Those children remained in Atlanta, and now they're active members of the masjid. Also, sometimes in some cases, the entire family moved to Atlanta so that the children could go there for school. My late husband, Khalid Khan, did that with his family. They moved from Washington, D.C. to Atlanta so that their children could go to the school. here in Atlanta. His wife that he moved to Atlanta with, she passed away, and may Allah forgive her and grant her a place in paradise. And then he, stayed and continued to rear his children, and some of our grandchildren have even attended the school here in Atlanta. So having a school is a great way to grow your masjid and then to also sustain your community. In terms of the initial beginning of a school, it's great to have because you have it within the masjid because you already have the space. It's already, I guess, meeting safety requirements and all of those kinds of things. And you talked about regulations and different things. Schools, if you're going to operate a school, there are certain mandatory requirements. Even if you operate a masjid, there are certain safety requirements, certain conditions that you have to have related to your building. So if you start out in the masjid or adjacent to the masjid or connected in some way with the masjid property, that gives you a leg up in a sense on meeting all of those safety requirements for a physical facility. Also, initially, you can get some support financially from the masjid in terms of your utilities and in terms of maybe your space and renting your space and other things. So those would be some of the cons. Eventually, though, if you want to have more opportunities, and these are opportunities that are coming to you that you can take advantage of. If you just want to have a school that focuses on Islamic education, that can go under what's called homeschool regulations or just general private school regulations, you're okay with staying under the masjid. But if you want to have your school have access to other grants and to other things that are beyond the control of the masjid, you may have to develop into your own 501c3. You may have to get your tax exempt status changed. You may have to take a look at getting accreditation, or which is a legal, standing in some type of way, a regulatory standing. And then you may also have to do some other local kinds of accreditations as well. For example, if you have a pre-K program or an early childhood program, your state may have certain rules for early childhood centers that you have to meet that you may not be able to meet if you are just a religious education place, body. And then also, as well, you have it depends on your grade level. For example, the grade levels rather that you're going to offer. If you're going to offer just pre-K programs, that's a lot easier to stay within the confines of the masjid community and structure. But if you're going to begin to go all the way up to the high school level, then you're going to have to, be able to offer a college prep diploma. You're going to have to prove that your graduates have met all the general state requirements for high school graduation within your local state, and those differ from different states. Sometimes, for example, in New York, you have to have so many credits, high school credits, and then you have to pass the Regents exam. In Georgia, our students in a private school, they don't have to pass the end of course test, but they do have to have had subjects taught in specific curriculum areas. So that's another regulation. So I would look at the number of grades that you intend to offer, and also what would be the state regulations in terms of proving that you are offering a credible education to those children. The other con that I think sometimes comes up is when you have a different vision of your school and what you want to do than what the masjid wants to offer. And why would I say that? You would think that okay, everything is just based around our love of Islam and our wanting to make sure that our students get a good foundation in the religion and that they understand and practice the religion. But sometimes the imams or the leaders in your masjid may have more of a focus on just that, whereas you may realize that you need to do some other things as well. So, and those, would not be anything that would be detrimental. But for example, if you wanted to have a STEM program and just focus in on, making sure that they were strong in the sciences and in technology, the some massages that may be more conservative may say, no, we don't need that. We just need to, produce a hafiz, by the time they finish with us. So making sure that your visions are aligned in terms of what each party or each group thinks is important to emphasize in the school setting. And then sometimes too, if you've been commingling your finances, I know there was a time where even in Atlanta, where the masjid community actually was paying the teachers' salaries, and then when the community members were short or weren't able to to continue with that, then whose burden is it? Where do you end up? And then you begin to have to develop a system or a way of charging tuition that's going to support yourself with that. So making sure that you're clear in terms of who's going to pay for what, and then also whether or not it's going to be dependent on tuition solely, or whether or not it's going to be depending on some type of support from your Atlanta masjid, or from your masjid. And then one of the things too, that we have a structure now, whereas the imam is no longer the director, but our Majlis Ashura has, in a sense, kind of an oversight or a final way. Well, basically, it's not a final decision, but basically, they take Shura on the school board's decisions and say, we think that this could be better facilitated this way or whatnot, with that. So there will always be that kind of connection, especially if you're growing your school from within your community. So
And so you shared a bunch, right? And so some of what I heard was that some things vary from state to state in terms of what's required. What I also heard was it depends on what your foresight is for the school, right? How far do you want to go? What does that look like for you in the future? And that may determine how you study in the present. I heard
okay, I'm losing you a little bit,
some of the
Marcia.
financial consideration in that. I don't know if my sound went out. Can you all hear me?
A little bit better, but it's still a little muffled.
Okay. No, and there's some weather issues here, so I think I'm back in.
Okay, yes.
But what I also heard was that there are some financial considerations to think about, right? Who a commingling of funds is something big in in the nonprofit industry. I know from the work I do, right? There's always a concern about what's connected and how it's connected, um, particularly when we're thinking about school and masjid in that setup. So a lot of things to consider here that people who are listening and watching can think about when they're considering what they want this school to look like. What I also heard you talk about was that if you're interested in just doing early child education, you may just have a lot more flexibility in that, before instead of just going the full route and saying, well, we want to have all the way up until 12th grade, and then that may complicate things. So those are a lot of things to consider on the front end that I feel like perhaps our schools sort of kind of learned along the way. and didn't necessarily have all of that stuff up front. So it's good to be able to have this conversation now for those who are considering schools in their area, and to have this um, information that our schools have sort of experienced already. Sis,
I
go
also
ahead.
think I also think as well, just in looking at the history of our schools across the nation,
Mm-hmm.
many of them failed or had to not fail, but had to close because they were trying to offer kindergarten through eighth grade or kindergarten through 12th grade. And you generally tend to lose students at the up in the upper grades a lot faster than you will students at the lower level. Everybody, every working parent is going to always need childcare and need
Right.
for their young children. And when a lot of the schools were experiencing closures, it was because they were, not just keeping that small amount of students, of those pre-K students and kindergarten students. And you will find probably too, if you were to survey most of the schools now, especially those that are weekday schools, you will find that their entrance of younger children is higher than it is at the upper grades. Yeah, you'll find that to be the case.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point, because as you were stating that, I was thinking about when our school was open here locally, and how there is sort of a drop off as you get to the higher grades, because there is a greater expectation there, right? And so perhaps that's feeding into this too. And Sister Mahassan, talk to us a little bit about what if so your school is connected to the masjid in terms of, right, it's under the masjid, right? It's not a separate entity. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. But talk to us about how easy or how complicated that is as you think about the regulations in Tennessee, and if that's ever been an issue for you all.
Okay. We're still in the process of getting a certification. We've not completed that aspect, but so far it has not been a problem. Um, Honestly, to have the school in the masjid is better, because you have, to me it's better because you have the community invested, and they not, we charge tuition and we have fundraisers, but if there's a shortfall, our community come together and they make sure that we have what we need. We have, right now we have a building. We don't have our classes inside of the Masala, but we have a building that will accommodate uh, classes. And so we're not in the masjid, but we are in the same building. Right now, we are working on the lower level of the masjid, and that's where inshallah, we're planning to move the school, and they will be operating under the physical, uh, under the building, the lower part of the building. But honestly, the having the masjid, the believers in the masjid, all of them supporting the school, it's makes it much easier, because you are going to run into a lot of things, but then if you have that community behind you, I'll give you a good example, and I don't even know if we have time for this, but like in the past, you've had people to want to close your school down, and at this building where we are now, it was a store, and they wanted to sell liquor, they wanted to sell beer and that type of thing. Well, in Tennessee, you can only be so you can't be that close to a school and selling alcohol or beer or anything like that. So our community banded together, and we went to the board as a group, uh, fighting this, and we won. We won. So having that backing of the community, the strength of the community, then it makes running the school much easier to me.
Yeah, and it sounds like for you in Tennessee, the documentation piece of your affiliation with the masjid isn't an issue. And so what we're finding out from this conversation is that you really do need to be you really do need to know what the regulations are in your state as it relates to having your school and being connected to a religious institution. Dr. Khan also talked about funding, right? Funding sort of changes the game too, whether or not you can be a religious institution, have your school be connected to a religious institution and um, compete for funding like grants and such, because many of those have limitations as it relates to whether or not those monies can be given to a religious institution. And so I'm not going to dominate the conversation. I'm going to let Dr. Shisha ask a few questions, but these are some good points to for people to consider as we're thinking about opening or reopening our institutions and making sure that we begin thinking about where we want, where we ultimately want this institution to go, and planning for that on the front end and structuring our institutions accordingly. Dr. Fisher, you're on mute.
Okay, I unmuted myself. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And
So let us say that.
Dr. Khan, is wonderful to see you. Sister Hassan, is wonderful to see you. I have a
Alhamdulillah.
question for uh, Sister Hassan. And your school has been around for a very long time, as well as Mama Schools of Atlanta. Your school's been around for a long time. How did you you started as did you start as a University of Islam? And yeah, did you? Okay. So and so when you
Yes, ma'am.
start so you start, and of course that was connected to the message. So what kind of transitions did you make when you guys went to the Clara Muhammad School system?
From Muhammad's University of Islam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. To be honest, the transition wasn't that difficult because, we were getting, okay, back during that time, we met with Imam Wardi Muhammad quite a bit. He would meet with the teachers, the rectors, and give us instructions on, what to do, how we should do things. So when the time came, it really actually it was a very smooth transition. We were Muhammad's University of Islam. We had boys and girls, but the boys did not attend in Nashville. They didn't attend the same time that the girls did. When we first started off, our boys would come the first half of the day, and our girls would come the second half of the day. And that was done so that all attention could be on lesson as opposed to boys being distracted with the girls. And then as we went on, we eventually started bringing both groups together and doing a full day with both groups. Uh, so actually, the transition wasn't difficult at all. When Imam Wardi Muhammad asked us to uh, uh, make that transition, we just did it. We just did it, and it wasn't the instruction that we were given. We just followed them. So it wasn't a difficult transition. I'm gonna be honest. I brought our imam along as well because I felt like, okay, he's been around quite a while, and he may have some insight with some things that might be helpful as well. So if you like, I can put him on, and he can he can give us some added information.
It would be the good from the perspective of the imam, and because that does uh, sometimes the school can be a burden, so as well as a benefit. So yeah, it'd be great to hear from the imam to see
Okay,
how perspective of the school in relationship to the masjid.
okay. Hold on just a second.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam.
I was really enjoyed the conversation, but and I think a lot. I I'm I've been the imam here for what, how long? About 50 years, just about. But the school has been it has been a challenge. But we love our school, and we love our students. We love. I myself love to see them develop. Sometimes I just like to come to the masjid, and since we got a good imam, I can come to the masjid and I can just look at them. And if they do something they need a little corrected, I can do that. But uh, the the school is a it's a pride that we have. I love the school and I love the students. And I love, Atlanta. I like to come to Atlanta sometime because they got so many students, and I just love to see it. And when I come to Atlanta, one thing I've noticed over the years is that school increases the membership of the master, and likewise in our school. Is those children? We have students that go to high school, and they on Friday they'll go and tell their principals they have to go, and they will leave high school and call their parents or call somebody, and they'll come to Juma. Some of them come almost every Friday, you know, and I admire them so much for that because I've been in the hospital and I wasn't really sick, but I was in the hospital and I told the doctor I had to at about 11 or 12 o'clock I had to leave. And he said, "Oh, we can't let you go." And blah 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 blah. I said, "Well, let me tell you this, Doc." I said, "Allah says, O ye who believe, when the call is proclaimed for prayer on Friday, the day of assembly, hasten earnestly to the remembrance of Allah, and leave all business and practice. That is best for you, you but knew." I said, "Now what do you say?" And one of the little nurses said, "Well, we're not God." And I looked at the doctor because I wanted to see how he was going to respond to that. Because if he hadn't responded properly, I was going to have to put him in his place. You know. So those children, and I tell that story sometime in the school in the Juma, and I guess they probably doing the same thing. But they go to school every day. Uh, they 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 enjoy learning. We got some athletic. We got one youngster. He's a quarterback. It's not. We don't have. It's not our team to say, but he's a quarterback on the team that he plays with. And so it's exciting. It's exciting, and I wish that every master can get a school. I wish that every master had a school. I wish that every Muslim man and woman would work hard to see it. Sister Mahasan talk about how every now and then it comes up they ain't got enough money to pay the teacher. So when that start going around in the congregation, especially on Friday, then brothers start digging in because everybody know the teachers have to be paid. They got light bills, they got car notes, whatever else that they got. They know that they have to be paid, so they dig in and they pay. And, so we had some difficult times. And matter of fact, last year at the end of the year we uh, the last payday, we were short of cash, and we were able to raise just enough money to get everybody paid.
Mashallah.
And so it's a trial, it's a test, but it's a good test, and it's a blessing from Allah to have believers who have realized that the Imam said we have priority, and that's Darwin education. And so, if that being the case, then when the time for education comes, let's do education. When time comes for Darwin, let's do Darwin. Let's do what we're supposed to do
Right.
and live a good life. Praise
Alhamdulillah.
Allah. And I appreciate you, sisters, and the effort that you're making. I pray Allah bless you. And anything we can do to help you, or any words we can give to support you, we are willing. Assalamu alaikum.
Well,
Wow. Thank
it's
you
good.
so much.
It's good to see you, brother Yusuf.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And y'all, too.
Yes. And so we'll do a quick station identification. If you're just joining us, you are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. This is a podcast hosted by the Clara Mohammed Schools Network. And tonight we are talking about masjid affiliated schools, the pros and the cons, the benefits and the challenges. And the guests for tonight are Dr. Zahira Shakir Khan and Sister Mohsen Abdullah. And we had a special a special visit from Imam Yusuf Abdullah. So thank you so much for being with us. So I wanna. So
And
what I'm hearing.
Marsha, would I
Yes,
get a chance? Can I get a chance to respond to the challenges and the
absolutely,
okay?
absolutely,
All
yes.
right. We
What
too.
Go ahead. I just wanted to say this one thing. What
Sure.
I'm hearing is that there are some benefits in having the school because of what it does for the community, and so it's good to hear that piece of it too, right? Um, and I also want us to have a conversation about um, the benefits and the challenges as it relates to like ultimately going towards accreditation as well. But Dr. Khan, go ahead and talk to us about the challenges that you wanted to share.
Okay. Here in Atlanta, we had a school, the Nation of Islam, in those days, and it was called, of course, the University of Islam, and we were a part of the at that time Temple Number 15. Then when the transition came and the ma'ams realized that the school was really paying, we were paying the teachers from the brothers paper money. So depending on the number of Muslims Muhammad speaks that they could sell, that was what the teachers got paid. And when a lot of times we couldn't make that payroll, and it became increasingly difficult, for them to manage, that the school unfortunately had to close for a few years. So in 1976, the school closed, even though Imam Muhammad came in 1975. The school had to close for a while, but the community wasn't satisfied with that. So they worked over 2 years under Imam Muhammad's guidance and direction in terms of what it would take to reopen a school, and also attracting personnel and other things. We were able to reopen in 1980. So from 76 until 1980, the Atlanta school was actually closed. And then, of course, when we reopened, we used the name that Imam Muhammad came up with to honor his mother's contributions to the community. So we reopened as Clara Muhammad School. And then each year, we added a grade level until we had it all the way up to high school. And then eventually, it was like maybe mid 80s or so, we started calling our high school W.D. Muhammad High School. And we had to, get the imam to approve, us using that name. And so he came down and toured the school and facilities and things. And he said that, it was having a school is a great form of dawah. And so he said, okay, you can use my name on the high school. So our Clara Muhammad School is pre-K through 8th grade, and W.D. Muhammad High School is 9th grade through 12th grade. And we're under the umbrella of the Muhammad Schools of Atlanta. So that's what when you hear me say the Muhammad Schools of Atlanta, it's the lower level pre-K through 8th, Clara Muhammad, and high school is W.D. Muhammad. So it was really the faith and the courage of the community to just get back to open that school up again. And now we have been reopened, going into our 40. I think this is our 43rd year where we have been reopened. No, more than that. This would be our 46th year that we have been open again. So, that was our transition process. But having that love for the school and having that spirit of wanting to have a school is really the thing that gives you a school. And, even if you're down to one student, if the community says we're going to have a school with one student, you're going to have a school. So you got to keep that spirit and that flame of desire and courage, really, to sustain that, in your community.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for sharing that, because I think that that's the thing that like gets us excited about having schools, right? Is that there's this energy in the masjid, in the community, that says we need a school, right? I just experienced it this weekend. So this weekend at Masjid Mohammed Newark, we hosted the New Africa conference, and in that conference on Friday night, there was a discussion about education, and it was education across the board. So the network was on the panel, but we also had a representative from Mali and IQSL and ILI and the ILTDP program. So all of the adult Islamic education also. And what rang true and just kept coming up in that conversation was, what is it that we need to do to get a school, right? And with that questioning, right, comes those nuances that we're discussing now, right? So yes, the excitement and the love and the vigor for wanting the school, but then also, there are regulations, there's paperwork, there are rules, there are, all of these other things that need to be considered. And as people are trying to make these decisions, it gets difficult, right? Because it's like, and I've even experienced and also have just heard like the challenge with making the decision on having the school be connected to the masjid, because um or, or what people are contemplating is, you know do we have it separate so that we don't run into any of the challenges with accreditation, or do we have it connected to the masjid because we don't want it to be so separate that it can separate from the masjid completely and not be our school, right? And so speak a little bit to that, right? I don't know what went into the decision making from and I'll start with you, Dr. Khan, when you all were reopening the school in Atlanta in the 80s. What did you experience some of that, where it was kind of like, keep it with the masjid because we don't want it to get too far and to have somebody run off with the school,
Right.
or have
Yeah.
it be separate because
Right.
we need it to have longevity and sustainability?
Right. Yes. We when we reopened in 1980, it remained under the control of the Atlanta Masjid, and the imam was, in a sense, the director. Now you had a principal, that ran the day-to-day operations, but the imam was really still the director. It wasn't until we went up for accreditation in 2000 and 2001 that the at that time the accrediting body for the southeastern region, southern region, they said you can't have the imam can't be the director. So that was the only change. We just said that the imam was no longer the director, but we were still affiliated though with the religious institution, and that provision is still there. You can still be affiliated with it, but you just can't say that the imam is your director. And so that's the only change that we had to make. But you will, when you think of the Muhammad schools of Atlanta, you think of the Atlanta Masjid. It's still very, very closely connected. And as I said, the masjids, Majlis Ashura, really just kind of is an advisory or an oversight group, for the school still. So we're still very largely connected and very much seen as a part of the community, even though there may be some things that we operate separately on, and our finances are totally separate
Okay.
at
And
this
so,
point.
and that's good to know. And I actually was, my next question was going to be about the finances, and this question is for both of you, Dr. Khan and Sister Mahasan. You know, how I guess, what is it that you do to separate the finances? Is it complicated? Because
If
we talked about how sometimes when you're thinking about your operating budget, right? Sometimes you get to a week where there's a shortfall, and what do you do if it's separate? So talk a little bit about like how the finances are structured, as much as you can give us, right? To kind of
okay,
help and guide people for what that could potentially look like for their institutions.
okay. The finances are separate. The master has its account, its treasurer, its secretary. The school has its own account and a treasurer that works with the school. All funding that comes to the school, it goes into the bank account with the Clara Muhammad School name on that account. The master doesn't, it usually doesn't ask the school for any money because most of the time we don't have any, first of all. But if we find ourselves falling a little short, then we notify our imam, our treasurer, and you know some of the believers to let them know we're running a little short. We need a little help this week. And after the Juma prayer on Friday, uh, usually that is taken care of. Some of the believers would come, give extra money, put it on Clara Muhammad School, and at the end of Friday, then that. But inshallah, most of the time we try very, very hard not to fall short. We have tuition, but everybody knows tuition is never enough to cover a school. So you have to have things on the side, and that's having the school, it keeps the activities for the masjid. It keeps the masjid alive, really, because you're not going to have a bunch of children and you don't have activities and things for them to do. So that helps to dictate a lot of community life. Okay, we're having an auction. All the people come together. They bring their money. We have fun together. It's a community event, but at the end, the funding goes to the school. So all of that, you know, all of that is important. It's so important. But the finances are separate. I want to just kind of jump in and say this right quick to Marsha, and this is for people who are looking to start a school. Paperwork and all of that's important. But if you really want to start a school, you find a few people, and it doesn't have to be a lot, who are dedicated toward that, who have that passion for that. Because sometimes you may have to work and not get paid. Or sometimes, so you have to find the people who are passionate about that particular thing. And you just jump in and do it. You go in. Because sometimes what happens, people put it off, and we use things like, okay, we got to get credit. You don't get your accreditation before you get started. And once you get started, things will be dictate to you. Okay, we got to do this next. Okay, we got to do this. We've got to order all of these textbooks. We've got to do this. Things began to dictate to you what you have to do. Once you get started, then you can look at the accreditation. But first, you got to stick your foot in the water and go on and get started. And sometimes you don't want to wait until your children grow up. Putting it off, we put it off, we put it off. And then look up, your children are grown. And not only are they grown, they're gone. And they're going to go because they're going to go where they're educated a lot of times. But then if we educate our children, they're going to go out, their endeavor, learn what they can learn, and they will eventually bring it back. And I'll give you a good example of that. Our principal, I'm not the principal anymore. I was the principal for 52 years. Sister Aliyah. She's our principal. Sister Aliyah went to Clara Muhammad School from pre-K all the way to graduation. And when she went to college, well, she went to high school because we only go to eighth grade. She went to high school at it was Hunter's Lane here. And once she got there, she would invite the imam to come in, and not just her, several of our students. They would invite the imam to come in and speak to large groups of students, and the schools would let them. They would let the imam come in and teach because they want to know about Islam. So they took that on with them. Once got when she graduated high school at 16, but she left our school at the age of 12 going into the high school area. At 16, she graduated high school and she went on to college, graduated cum laude there. And then she went on to law. She hasn't finished law school yet. So, but what she did, she came back to give back to Clara Muhammad School here in our school. So she went from pre-K all the way out, went to college, high school, college, law school, and she came back to give. And so that's a good example. And we have several of our students who have graduated and then they go and learn and then they bring it back. And that's what you want. That's what we want as a community. We want community life. We want our children to learn all they can out there, and all the things that you've learned that you benefit from, you bring it back to help build community life. And I know I'm talking a lot, but that's it.
Alhamdulillah.
And,
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Sister Mahasin. That is a very important point. I'm so happy you mentioned that. Gave us this idea of what your history like, but also talking about Sister Aaliyah is your principal, but she's also an alumni. And that is a very important group to the Clara Muhammad School. So those of us who want to start a Clara Muhammad School, think about your tap into that resource, the alumni, tap into that group of people. In fact, we're going to have at our next network, the CMS network leaders meeting. Our first meeting is going to be for the beginning from the for this fall is going to be September the 3rd. So, and that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to have a guest speaker to talk to us about how to tap into the alumni. So thanks for bringing that point up. That's a very good point. Thank you so much.
the only other thing that I would add, and here in Atlanta this year, our principal, one of our assistant principals, one of our level leaders, and our guidance counselor are all alumni of the Mohammed Schools of Atlanta this year. The other thing I was going to mention too is that the notion of the weekend school. When I lived in Tallahassee, Florida, and when I was in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Michigan for a while, we had a strong weekend school program so that the students could come on either Saturday or Sunday. And I know in Indianapolis, South Carolina, and one or two other places, they have a really, really vibrant weekend school program. So, and that's, it may be where you need to start, at a particular time. So you have that opportunity for the children to come together to, for an hour or two on a Saturday or Sunday, whatever is convenient for your community. And just starting and having a strong weekend school is also a very, very vibrant, thing to get started, even if you can't do a full weekday school.
And I so appreciate you for stating that, because when we were discussing um, the option for a school here locally at the New Africa Conference on Friday, that was one of the points that I had made. Right, we have a very vibrant weekend school here in North New Jersey, right, and where when we had a full-time school, and we went right up until when the children went back to school during COVID, and then from there we closed. But in that full-time format, we had some, like an average of like a little less than 10 children, right? And at our high point in those latter years. But our weekend school, we have 30 children coming consistently every weekend. And our so we had class today. We have classes on Sundays for 2 hours, but we have 30 children in that program consistently. I mean, I would say consistently coming each week, probably about 20 to 25 of them. And so, but on enrolled, we have anywhere from like 30 to almost 40 children in on on the books for the school. And so you make a very important point, because what I shared was that inshallah, that's a precursor um to your full-time institution, because now we you
Yeah.
get that vibrant energy of seeing the children every Sunday and being in the atmosphere. And now that motivation to want to have a full-time institution and have families trust that they can send their children to the masjid to be educated, because they see other families doing the same. And so I really appreciate you for sharing that point, because it's such a valid point, in that sometimes it's easier to get that started than the full-time format, and then you transition, and that's a way to get your full-time school open as well.
Sister Marsha, Imam
Yes,
has another point he wants to make right quick.
absolutely.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
When I first became the imam, one day I was at the masjid. I was reading hadith, and I ran across a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told the believers in the masjid, don't let don't stop the children from playing and having fun. He said that's it's very important. And I read that and I never got it. And so in Master that Islam, I told the brothers, it's always somebody that's really stern and want everybody to sit down in the corner and shut up, right? So I told them that what the Prophet said, that if the children in the masses and they want to run and play, let them run and play. Don't stop them. So now, if you come to Masjid Al Islam, you might see a kid run across the floor and run up the wall, flip backwards, and take off running again. And now, what happened after when they could do that? They love to be at the masjid. And I've had parents told me that if they drive past the masjid and don't stop, the kids just go wild. They because they want to be at the masjid, they want to swing in the swing, they want to slide in the slide, and if they get inside, they want to run up the wall. And then when Juba time comes, everybody sit down. We got an agreement. If when Juba time comes, you sit, you be quiet, because this is Juma. But after the Juma is over, you're free. So we've used that, and I think that's one reason why so many of our children come back. They come back because they enjoy being at the masjid. There's nobody sitting around saying, "Go sit down in the corner and shut up and be quiet." They want to interact with their friends and things. So I wanted to mention that, because I learned that the first year I became the man, I read that from the Prophet, and we practiced it ever since, and it has been productive for us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we have also had that challenge in Atlanta, and what we tried to do is to create play spaces for the for the children. And what we are finding though is that some of our children though do need, and and I'm glad to hear you say that when it comes time for Juma, that's not a time for running at that particular time. We are trying to make sure that our children feel open and that they feel free, but at the same time, we don't want them to feel entitled to, like, I get a chance just because I'm at the masjid, I get a chance to run and flip and do those kinds of things. We don't want them to feel entitled, but we want them to feel an opportunity to play and to have fun. So what we've done is we've created a park on the outside, and then some play spaces, and then some times for that. But we were finding in Atlanta that it was sometimes becoming more of a gym than a place for prayer. And so what we had to do is we had to put some structure around it. So and I think the ma'am's point is well taken, that you want children to feel like they can be children, but in terms of understanding where you are and what you do at certain times, I think it's also important for us to teach our children, some boundaries as well. And so we're trying to work through that.
I'm sure it is a challenge. It is
It
a
is, yeah, it is, yeah,
It's a part of, but it's a part of the, it's a part of your curriculum. It's a
yeah,
part of your curriculum, and I'm not talking about it's just a school curriculum, but we're talking about this curriculum in general. That
right,
because we're here to learn, right? And we're here to teach our children as well as we're here to learn as well. So one of the things of teaching our children is what do you do in certain spaces?
yes, yes,
In this space and at this time. So when someone is praying, when people are praying this Juma, then that space is to be treated a certain way.
right,
But if there's nobody, is if it's not Juma, then the space is okay to be treated a certain way. At the same time, they also have to learn how to respect the space.
right.
So we're teaching our children how to respect uh, property and how to respect spaces that we're living in. So yeah, it's a whole learning process that we're going through from the top.
Absolutely. And so as we prepare to bring this conversation to a close, I do want to ask um, from the perspective of the educators, right? So we talked about how the community loves to see the children in the space, right? When we're talking about schools that are connected to the masjid, right? The members of the community love to see the children in the space. The children enjoy being at the masjid. We talked about accreditation and perhaps how that could potentially change things and what you got to do with your finances and who can be in charge of the school. I also want to know if you can share with us a little bit um, from the educator's perspective. Are there any benefits or challenges that you see that you can share with us in having them be employed at an institution that's connected to the masjid? Is there maybe something? Are there restrictions? Are there maybe are there more opportunities? Are there less opportunities? What have you seen from your instructors as it relates to this setup with masjid affiliated schools?
One of our challenges over the years has been getting teachers certified and having a professional background. Some of the subjects now and the way that they're taught and the requirements for the curriculum now do require a greater degree of training. Initially at the University of Islam and in the early days of Clara Mohammed schools, and if you just had a person that was passionate and they just really wanted to be in there, you didn't worry about whether or not they had a college degree or a background in education. But now we're finding that some level of certification is some level of training or experience in particular curriculum areas is very important. And but then to attract those people, a lot of times we don't pay the salaries, so we can't offer them a competitive salary that they could get, based on their training and experiences. So that has been is one of the challenges that we're facing. Another thing too is that especially at the high school level, a lot of the emphasis is changing now. They're trying to get more students in terms of the sciences and engineering and those kinds of things. And sometimes to really do those courses effectively, you have to have more equipment, and you have to have the ability to do lots of field trips, and give the children a lot of experiences in those areas, and that can increase the cost of what you're trying to offer. And you have to do a lot of networking, and use a lot of community resources sometimes to teach that. And I know with being in Nashville, they have Vanderbilt, they've got Tennessee State, they've got Fisk, and so they've got a lot of institutions there that their children can benefit from. And in a larger city, you can do that. Like in Atlanta, we have the Science Center, we've got museums, and we've got all those other kinds. We've got Georgia Tech and Emory and Morehouse School of Medicine, and other things, so that our children can have those kinds of experiences. But sometimes I think perhaps in a smaller city or in a real spread out area, you may find some challenges in terms of offering a really strong, comprehensive program, for your children.
Well, that listen, this has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate the things that both of you have shared with us. Just to kind of give a recap, I hear so many benefits for being a masjid affiliated school, right? And for what it does for the community, what it does for the children, and their appreciation for the masjid and for the community, right? Wanting to give back to that environment, that institution, that community of people who poured into them. And then I also hear us saying, think about where you want your institution to be 10, 20, 50 years from now. And when you are setting the institution up, think with that lens, and perhaps that will impact your decision making as to how you structure the institution. I also hear that it's really key to keep those finances separate. So we want to make sure that we're reiterating that to those who are watching and listening. We've heard that this evening, right? It's important to have that accounting be separate, but it's also a nice benefit to know that you have the masjid there to help when things get tight. So,
I think
I
also
hope. Go
some
ahead.
additional training and
Yeah.
support with our schools and fundraising
Yes.
would be, beneficial. People are raising funds in all different kinds of ways now, electronically, as well as, the traditional banquets and fundraisers and pledge drives and other things. So I think also perhaps the network might be helpful and supportive in terms of helping schools identify and design fundraising opportunities.
Absolutely. And you make a important point even about the professional development piece. The Clara Muhammad Schools Network has a wonderful, wonderful professional development program to help our institutions get their staff members trained, so that the look and feel of Clara Muhammad School is there across the country and internationally, right? Because our network also consists of the Clara Muhammad School in Bermuda. And so um,
And
this
it's
is definitely, go ahead, Dr. Tricia.
and it's free. Our PD is
And
free.
it's free. Absolutely. But this has been a valuable conversation because you even cleared some things up for me, whereas I thought that going out for accreditation meant that this institution couldn't be under the masjid, and that you had to have this separate institution where you have a separate registration and a separate 501 C3. But what I'm hearing is that as long as you have those separation of duties that they require, then perhaps you could still have the institution be connected to the masjid in that way in terms of documentation. And if I got it wrong, please correct me. but I'm hearing that it doesn't have to be um, so separate in that way, as long as you're adhering to what those guidelines are. And hopefully that's been good for our viewers and our listeners to hear as we, as we get excited for establishing something for our children, because as was stated, having that school really ultimately becomes sort of like the lifeblood of the masjid, and it's beautiful to see all the children in the environment. And so I'll give our guests one last word, and we'll get ready to close this one out.
Okay. I'll before I get off, I want to invite you guys to our 54th annual benefit dinner that's coming up in October. It's going to be October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's a 3-day event. And inshallah, I'm going to speak with the principal to make sure that you all get the information that you need. And I love to see all of you here.
Absolutely. And if Sister Aaliyah can get us a flyer, we'll make sure that we show it on our next broadcast.
Okay. I'll tell them.
Okay. And you may
Dr.
also
Khan?
want to share it on Study Al Islam announcements.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll get you that information, Sister Mahassan, because then you can get a spot on Study Al Islam to promote that also.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Dr.
Um,
Khan?
I would just like to say be encouraged and have, the faith if whatever you're doing, if it's a weekend school, if it's trying to do a day school, or if you're trying to maintain a school to get to 54 years or beyond, then whatever you're doing, just be encouraged and know that Allah is in this. And as Imam Muhammad said, education is our number one priority, and it is essential that we have some form of schooling or education, even if it's just the Jumu'ah prayer time or whatnot. But to continue to move forward with that and have the courage and the faith that it can be done.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Patricia, did you have anything before we go?
Well, just to thank Dr. Khan and Sister Hassan for sharing the wealth of information that you shared with us today, and the historical. Both of you have been in this for a long time, and you had a lot of history to share with us. And it's always good to hear the history and the experiences that you've had, and it's encouragement for those of us who are still in, for those of us who may want to get started, and it's encouragement for those of us who are still in it. So we really thank you so much, and we really appreciate you. It's so
Alhamdulillah.
Absolutely. And thank you from me. As was stated, we definitely appreciate all that you share. And for those who are watching, we encourage you to get a school started in your area if you haven't done so already. There is support available through the Clara Muhammad Schools Network, and we would love to have you join us in this work. This has been another episode of The Power of Educating Our Own. This show is hosted and facilitated by the Clara Muhammad Schools Network. We will be back in this space next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode. And until then, Assalamu alaikum. May God's peace be with you. Peace.
Assalam. Alhamdulillah.
much.
Alaikum assalam.
Sister Clara Mohammed, a black Muslim woman from Macon, Georgia, was an extraordinary leader and pioneer. Her contributions, especially in the development of Islamic education in America, paved the way for thousands of Muslim families to take ownership of their children's future, starting at a time when homeschooling was illegal in the United States. She eventually established a network of schools that was later named Sister Clara Mohammed Schools in her honor by her late son, Imam Warith Din Muhammad, rahimahullah. Sister Clara Mohammed helped to establish the important role women had in early Muslim American history and was an inspiration to future generations of leaders. Without her, there would not have been a nation of Islam, or the unique Sunni Muslim community that evolved from it, one that was acutely aware of the concerns and aspirations of women. May Allah have mercy on Sister Clara Mohammed.